Like Scott said, we're talking about diabetes technology, and we're going to just jump right in. It is important to remember that we at Blue Circle Health, we don't start or prescribe the insulin pumps for you. You have to get that from your local provider, your local endo team, and they will be able to write the scripts and help you get started. But we want to make sure that you know what the technology is, know how it works, know how it's helpful, and once you are started on it and you're in our program, we can help you make any adjustments to the settings or answer any questions that you have. Okay. And it's always fun when we talk about diabetes technology to see where we started. So here is a picture of the syringe that had to be reused. They would boil it to clean it. And then this was our first way to check our blood sugars. And then here is this famous picture that you may have seen anywhere on the internet about the first insulin pump back in the 60s. So these are just kind of where we started. And this is where we're at today. So, diabetes technology, we have 5 different insulin pumps that are on the market. And then we have 3 different CGMs that are available, plus a CGM over here by Medtronic as well. And so, we'll talk about each of these at the end, but I really want to make sure that you understand some of the lingo and how they work so you can feel more confident when you go in and talk to your provider if this is something that you are interested in using. Okay. And so we're going to start with CGMs. So, what is a CGM? It stands for continuous glucose monitor. And it's a sensor that sits under the skin and sends a blood sugar reading to a receiver every few minutes. And this will provide you with an alert if you go too high or too low. It's a very, very thin filament, and I kind of think of it as like an eyelash that it looks like is what it is for the seat for the Dexcom or the Libre. The Eversense one is a little bit different, and again, we'll talk about that at the end. With most of them, it's like having like a little eyelash under your skin. And you wear it for a set number of days, and each one is different. And then the receiver or the app on your phone will tell you when it's time to change it, as it will tell you when it expires. And the receiver, again, is usually a smartphone, but there are little devices that you can carry along that if you don't have a compatible smartphone to use to get the number. Okay. And these CGM readings are approved by the FDA to determine how much insulin to take. So while you don't have to do finger sticks, you can use the number that is on the for the reading, and it will allow you to make insulin or decisions for insulin with that. And then again, they can also communicate with the insulin pump. The Dexcoms and the Libres can communicate with the insulin pumps. The Eversense, again, that we'll talk about a little bit, it's going to be with a pump that's coming out soon. Okay. And so we'll go to our next slide. So it's important to know that if you were to do a finger stick and you were to do a look at your phone or the receiver to see the number, they may be different. They may not be the actual same number, and that is okay because the CGM is reading the sugar that's in the fluid underneath your skin. So that tiny little eyelash is taking a reading that's in the sugar that's in the fluid underneath your skin. And a finger stick is actually a poke and is getting the sugar from your blood. And these numbers can be different. And that is normal for them to be different. And it's not common that they are exactly the same. Okay. The finger stick, the blood will move faster than the fluid. And so if you think about a train going up a hill, the beginning of the train is going to be up the hill before the end of the train. And the same thing when it's going down. Okay. So there's going to be a slight difference in those readings. And again, it is okay and it's normal for that to be the case. Now, there are times where you may see a really, really large difference. And then that would be the time that you might need to calibrate the sensor. Okay. So, but they are approved to have about a 20% difference. Okay. So that is that is normal for the numbers not to be exactly the same. Really think about the trend and how the blood sugar is moving. Okay. And there is a lot of data that's going to be available from the CGM, and it can be overwhelming to see all of these graphs. But just know that we at Blue Circle Health want to help you understand how to look at the graphs, how to read that information, and how to make decisions that will help you reach your target blood sugars based on what is being seen. Okay. And so this just makes me laugh. It's, look, a real CGM line, right? Because we know that blood sugars go all over the place, and there's usually never going to be a straight line. Okay. So blood sugars can go up and down even without having any food. Again, they can just kind of be variable, and that is normal, and that is okay. Okay. So on this next picture, next slide, this is just some of the examples of the different CGM data that is out there for you to look at. Okay. So this one here, this is a reading from Gluco. And this is a reading here or a trend from Dexcom. This black one is the reading from Night Scout. And this is a reading from this last one down here is what the information from the Libre. This is what that data looks like. You can track different things, like this person tracked when they ate, and they tracked how much insulin they took. And so all of these things you can put in there, or you may not put anything in. That's okay. Whatever works best for you in your treatment plan. And again, your provider can help you review this and help you make sense of all these graphs and what all these numbers mean. Okay. We don't expect you to know exactly what all of this is, but again, it can be overwhelming when you see all of this information. And so we want to help you to understand, and also make sure that you understand that you don't have to respond right away. If you start to see a trend going up, then it may fix itself on its own, depending on what you're using for insulin. But again, this is just kind of some examples of what the trends may look like.
You know, Sherry, one of the things I love about this particular display is it shows just the reality that our blood sugars are often moving around a lot during the day, depending on so many things, some of which we're in control of, but some of which we're not. And I'm so glad you mentioned about sometimes just giving things time, because I remember way back when I first started, when I first switched from, finger sticks to a continuous glucose monitor, I used to get myself in trouble by responding sometimes too quickly and overreacting to what I was seeing on my CGM. And so sometimes it's better, or can be better, to just give it some time. It's a great device to collect some data, to help you rethink some strategies. But you don't have to overreact to everything that you see on there, right?
Yeah, and I have definitely done that myself, and that's when I tend to get into trouble.
Hey.
Is overreacting. A lot of people have, like, the fear of a low blood sugar. Well, I'm kind of the opposite, and I don't like high blood sugar. So anytime I start to see something creep up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to give myself insulin. I need to give myself insulin. I don't want to be high. But then I end up crashing, right? So it takes a lot of restraint sometimes to just kind of let it go and know that it's going to be okay. The technology is going to work for me. And if it doesn't fix itself, then I know I need to readjust what I did, maybe for the meal prior, or the meal that may have happened with, or the exercise or something. So again, yeah, it's a good way to just gather data and then make decisions sometimes after the fact. Yes, thank you very much for that insight. All right, so there are a lot of pros to CGMs. I could probably make this list so much longer, but think about using a CGM as like a movie instead of a still picture, right? It tells you what's happening all the time, and it tells you where you're going. So this little arrow over here is called a trend arrow. So this is telling me that this blood sugar is staying pretty constant. It might go up a little bit, it might go down a little bit, but it's pretty stable. If you have arrows pointing straight up, then that means it's going up pretty, a lot faster. You might have an arrow out to the side over here, like kind of at an angle, and that means it's going up, but not super fast. And then again, if you have arrows going down, that means you're going down pretty quickly. So, knowing and understanding what those arrows mean is, again, part of the process of learning how to do this. But again, it tells us where we're at and what's getting ready to happen. So we can have the opportunity to, again, to look at those numbers and make a decision and use that information wisely. Okay. Again, it's showing the trends. So just those arrows I was talking about, and less finger sticks are needed. It doesn't mean that you will never ever have to check your blood sugar again with a finger stick. You just may not have to do it as often. Sometimes people will calibrate on day one of the sensor, and sometimes people will need to, depending on which one you're using. On the Eversense, you have to calibrate a little bit more at the beginning. Again, we'll talk about that more later, but that one has completely different things. So I want to make sure I kind of touch on that throughout the time. But yeah, so again, less finger sticks are needed. And again, they can communicate with insulin pump. And when it's communicating with an insulin pump, that means that the pump is using that blood sugar data to make adjustments to the basal rate, if you're using an automated insulin delivery system. So that's what I mean when it's communicating with the insulin pump. And the CGMs also allow you to have your friends and family follow you and contact you if they see that they get an alert as well. So basically, you would invite them and they would accept the invitation and they would download an app on their phone. And then they would be able to see your numbers and you could set alerts for them. So they get alerted if you're at a certain number, either high or low. But again, it's something that you would want to communicate with them about and make sure that you guys are all on the same page about when they should be contacting you. Because again, this is your health information and your blood sugar data. And so you get to decide who you share that with and how you want to be responded to or talked to about it. So just throwing that out there as well. But they can all be personalized and they can be helpful, especially if you live by yourself or something like that. Okay. So the cons to CGMs, it may be the cost. Unfortunately, they're not always covered by every insurance and they can be a little costly. You have something attached to your body all the time, and it may bring additional questions from people that you may not want that attention. You may have possible skin irritations. And so sometimes people will have irritation on their skin from one CGM, but not a different CGM. So that is possible. And usually the companies themselves will provide you with some information about how to solve that. And again, of course, if you're a part of Blue Circle Health, you can ask us and we can also provide you with information about how to help with that skin irritation. There's also like the troubleshooting challenges, like, oh my gosh, there is this, a connection issue and it may cause you frustration. And so, again, there's some additional kind of mental thoughts that go on with it, as well as it may add to diabetes distress. And so this makes me laugh thinking because like what is it like to hear too many alerts and alarms, and we may just want to end up throwing our phone, right? Because we're tired of hearing those things. So again, that the CGMs are great and they're fantastic, but again, they can cause some diabetes distress, and that's normal and that's okay. And we can talk about it and learn how to maybe manage those or turn some of the alarms off that may be causing some of the most distress. Okay. Any questions? Does anybody have any questions about the CGM data that we've gone over or the CGMs right now while we have a moment? Or maybe we should do that at the end, but
No, that's the timing is great. No big questions have come in, although we've got a couple of people, myself included, who are complaining a bit how with so I'm using a Dexcom G7, and occasionally we'll get um, the brief sensor issue with no data, and it just like kind of drops off the face of the earth for a while. And, most of the time it comes back. Sometimes it ends up failing and the sensor fails. But I would say even more frustrating than that is when it goes, brief sensor error. There's no data there. It'll pop back on for one or two readings and then brief sensor error again. And it's always tough for me to know, man, do I replace it? I'm only on day 7 or 8 or whatever, or do I give it time to just let it see if it can sort itself out? But the downside of that is that the CGM is kind of driving my automated insulin delivery. And so it's, I don't know that I don't know why that happens. I don't know if anyone does, but I mentioned in the chat that if it becomes problematic to always call Dexcom or Abbott to talk with them, do some troubleshooting, um, things like that. And we've got a couple of comments about the middle of the night alarms that we all love so much.
Yes, those middle of the night alarms, sometimes those compression lows that happen. If you think about it and you have it in a spot where you're sleeping and it's reading the fluid, the sugar in the fluid underneath your skin, and if there's no fluid there for it to be reading because it's all dispersed away, then it possibly may give you that low reading alert. So yeah, that's frustrating. But back to what Scott said about contacting them, I would contact your CGM company if you have a sensor like that and have it replaced. And they may fight back, but the more we report those issues, the more they're going to have to listen to us, right? Because it's driving that automated insulin delivery system if you have a pump connected to it, and they need to be aware. And maybe there's something that they aren't aware of, or maybe they are, but the more people that complain, the more likely they're going to get some action done for it. I mean, I know that that's like ugh, another thing on your list to do, another person to call, but I feel like it's important for us to call and let them know, because the more voices that they hear, or tell the FDA, right? Because the FDA knows that these things are driving the automated insulin delivery, and they need to be on par with each other, right? So, because that is very important. But yes, I would encourage you to report anytime something doesn't last the full 10 days or 14 days or 15 days, however long it's supposed to last for. You want to call and let them know, and then hopefully they'll replace it for you, especially if it's a sensor error. If it's an error that we've done, maybe we put it in the wrong spot and it fell off, or, some of those things, they may not always replace it. But if it's a sensor error, they should replace it. And if they don't, then the more of us that call and talk to them, I think the more movement we will get in that situation.
Yeah, thanks for talking about that. A couple more comments that have come in about trouble actually reaching Dexcom's customer support. I've had pretty good success with using some of the online tools. So there's some menu options in the app. If you're using a smartphone to get your data, there's some contact support options through there. I've also in the past submitted a support request online, and it's of course, like you're mentioning, Sherry, whenever we have to contact support, it's never going to be an amazing experience. It's always kind of a pain in the rear. But I do think that uh, as they're struggling to keep up with the pace of growth, um, that they're making some efforts to make it a little bit easier for us. So that's good. Another comment that the problem that we're describing with Dexcom and Abbott also happened with Medtronic. So it's not just specific to those companies as well. So yeah, I think let's keep on rolling, and these are comments and questions. Keep them coming, and we'll talk about them as we have opportunities.
All right, very good. Okay, so now we're going to move on to insulin pumps. So, what is an insulin pump? It's an external device that is delivering insulin, and it is approved for use with fast acting insulins like Novolog and Humalog. They are not FDA approved at this time for the rapid acting insulin like Fiasp and Lumja. It doesn't mean that they haven't been used. It's just not approved by the FDA in that way. So again, providers may do that and that's their choice and that's fine. It's just that it's off label use for that. Um, but what they're doing is they're delivering a small amount of insulin every few minutes, and that's called a basal rate. So a basal rate is given, and it's given a little bit of insulin every few minutes. And in the old-fashioned pumps, you would get that insulin no matter what your blood sugar was. In the newer pumps with the automated insulin delivery, it's going to be giving that amount based on what your blood sugar reading is. And we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But then when it's time to eat, the user will tell the pump that they are eating food and they will receive a dose of insulin to cover the meals and snacks. So that's called a bolus. So if you think about a bowl of food, you want to take a bolus of insulin to cover that food. So if you're using like daily injections, you take a bolus of fast acting insulin to cover that food, and you take your once a day or twice a day injection of a basal insulin. You no longer have to take that basal insulin anymore when you are on a pump, because the pump is doing that for you. It's giving a little bit of insulin every few minutes, and it takes the place of that basal insulin. Okay. And then, so how does a pump work? How does it know what to give? The insulin pumps are programmed with settings and or information from the CGM to determine how much insulin to deliver. Most of the pumps on the market, you program a basal rate, you program a carb ratio, you put in the correction factor or the insulin sensitivity, the duration of insulin action time, the blood sugar target, the blood sugar to correct above, and you may have to put your weight in. Those are some of the settings that are needed. Now, you as the patient are not coming up with that. So don't be overwhelmed. Don't think you have to come up with that information. The healthcare provider that writes the script for you is the one that's going to be telling your pump trainer what the settings are going to be. Okay. There is one pump on the market, the Beta Bionics, where all you have to put in is your weight and it will determine all of those settings for you. So, so it depends on which pump you're going to, which pump you may be using to know what is going to be used for delivering that insulin. But again, you don't have to come up with those settings. The provider does. And then once you get your insulin pump, you are usually put in touch with their local trainer, and those trainers help you get started. And then they send you back to your doctor, or you talk to us and we can help you with setting adjustments and things like that. And then the pumps will connect with the CGM via Bluetooth, and that's what is allowed for it to be that automated insulin delivery systems. Okay. So this is the big buzzword you keep hearing me talk about, is automated insulin delivery. That is what is happening with the newer pumps. Again, you have the basal rates that are set, but then the CGM, the sensor is communicating to the pump, and then the pump can take that basal rate and make adjustments to it automatically based on what your blood sugar is. So it usually happens every 5 minutes or so. It's going to take a reading, and then it's going to decide, does the basal rate need to increase? Does it need to decrease? Does it need to pause, or does it need to maintain the insulin that's being delivered with the goal to prevent highs or lows? Okay. So there's a few things that the algorithm is looking at when it's making that decision. It's looking at when the last time you took insulin was, what the target is or was, and it helps with, or it will look at what I say. I said the target, the insulin on board, the last time you, or the trend of what your blood sugar is doing, and it will help that. It'll make that decision every 5 minutes. Sorry, I'm kind of like all over the place with my brain. But mealtime insulin is still recommended for optimal blood sugar management. Okay. So the automated insulin delivery systems are more automated with what they're doing with your basal rate, but you still have to tell the pump that you're eating. Okay. You're either announcing it as a small, medium, or large meal, like the Beta Bionic does, or you are telling it how many carbs you're eating. And then the algorithm will work its best to help maintain those blood sugars.
Sherry, can we talk a little bit more about that mealtime insulin, right? Because I think a lot of people who maybe don't have experience with automated insulin delivery pumps, or for me, especially people who are kind of in the periphery of my diabetes world, they kind of think that these systems just are magic and they do it all for you and they will automatically keep your blood sugar where it needs to be no matter what's happening. But we're still wrestling with some of the issues around, especially the timing of most of us, unless we're dealing with some circumstances like gastroparesis or things like that. Most of the time, any carbohydrates that we eat are going to hit our blood sugars way faster than insulin that's being delivered via anything, right? And so that's where it comes in, where we still on these systems, it's recommended to announce carbs or tell the pump or the system that we're eating something. Do you want to talk a little bit about that at all?
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly what we're going to talk about in our next slide. So, yeah, the user has to tell the pump that they are eating. So, they're either like I said, telling it that they're having a small, medium, or large meal, and it's always a good idea to try and do that before. For most people, it's best to do that 10, 15, 20 minutes before they eat to get that insulin working before the food comes in. And so it's usually determined by a carb ratio and a correction factor and the blood sugar to correct above. So there's things that the pump is keeping track of. Don't think you have to keep track of all that. That's one of the nice things about a pump is that it's keeping track of all of those numbers for you. But in this example here, this is the Medtronic pump. This is what you would have to do to enter the carbs in. You would push the insulin vial. You would select a bolus that you were in a bolus. You would actually select it by pushing this little silver button right here. And then it allows you enter in the carbs that you're eating, and then it figures out how much insulin to give you. And then you would hit deliver bolus. Again, you would highlight it and hit that center button right there. And then it starts to bolus for you the amount that it needs. And you can see that this was a tiny bolus that was needed, only 0.7 units for this person that was eating 10 grams of carbs. So doing that before you eat allows the insulin time to start working and the food to then work. So they hopefully will marry up at the right moment and the insulin's working and the food is working. And then it prevents the big spike from happening after our meals. But timing is important. There's a lot of things that go into it. So we, as people with diabetes, we have to do the best that we can, right? And so it may not always work out perfectly, but we do the best that we can to try and make the timing and the marrying up of everything to work nicely. Depending on the algorithm that you're using, whether it's the Omnipod or Tandem or Medtronic or Beta Bionics or the Twist pump, they all work a little bit differently. So when you get on one of those pumps, it'll be important that you understand how your algorithm works the best for that situation. The Medtronic pump, it is able to handle sometimes not as if you don't pre-bolus as much. It's able to handle that because of the way that algorithm works. Whereas with Omnipod, it's really important that you pre-bolus because of the way that algorithm works. So once you decide if you want to get one of these, you want to make sure that you learn from the trainer or myself or someone else, make sure that you understand how the algorithm works because what works for one may not work as well for the other. So that's just something to think about when you're going forward with these products. Okay.
Sherry, can
Yeah.
we? There's a great question. I think it's very interesting. Do all pumps make noise when delivering insulin, like the Omnipod?
I don't think that they all do. I used Medtronic pump for a really long time, and I don't ever remember hearing the bolus. Like maybe at the very beginning you can hear it, but it was definitely not as pronounced as the Omnipod.
The
So
Omnipod, you're right. It's a very pronounced click that happens. Some of the other pumps, if it's quiet, you might hear the motor running a little bit. There was some of the like really old mini med pumps also had a kind of a click to them as they delivered, but there's some mechanics happening inside all of them as they're pushing insulin out. And so there's a little bit of noise, but you're right. The Omnipod, it's a very pronounced click.
yeah. And sometimes it's funny because I'll hear it go off and it's like seems to be more clicks than what I'm used to hearing. And so I'm like, oh, I should probably look and see what my blood sugar is and see if I need to do anything as a correction bolus or something like that, which is our next slide. But yeah, some of them make more noise than others. My husband teases me and he says, I think you're going to explode. And so I'm like, no, not yet. And so it's just kind of some teasing that we have going on, which is fine with me. It's not, I'm not offended or anything by that. So it's just kind of some in marriage teasing. So, but yeah, some make more noise than others for sure. All right. So then I just mentioned like a correction bolus. So this may be when you have to look at your pump and if you're not happy with what your blood sugar is at the moment, you may see if the algorithm will allow for you to do a correction bolus. So in this example here, you see that this says this is no recommended bolus. It does not recommend that I take a bolus because even though I'm kind of going up and I'm like, ooh, I don't want to hit that high, it's like you have carbs active and you have active insulin. So that insulin, that 1.29 units is still working. So it doesn't recommend that I add any more insulin to the mix because then it might think I'm going to go low. So one of the hardest things to do is to trust your algorithm and trust your pump. It takes some time to do that. It takes a little bit of faith to trust that algorithm and make sure your settings are correct. But yeah, so you can do additional insulin in between and you just would put like for this example, I just hit a button and it tells me what I would need to do. In other pumps, you hit the button and you don't put any carbs in and you see if it recommends something. So again, it just depends on which pump it is and how it works. But you can do additional insulin if you feel like it's needed or if your blood sugar's not at your target or maybe you ate more than you thought you were and you feel like you need to take some more insulin to cover that. You want to see what it recommends because it may already have recognized that and it may not recommend a bolus or it may recommend a bolus. So it really just depends. And again, the pump is keeping track of how much insulin you have on board, which is really nice. It's keeping track of that. And it's trying to prevent you from stacking where too much insulin is working or you take too much insulin and then all of it starts working at once. And then you end up really low, having a low blood sugar. So this is what is a correction bolus. Again, it's what you would do maybe in between a meal or if you're not at the target that you want your blood sugar to be at. Okay. Now, some of the pumps will automatically do a correction, and some of them you have to initiate it yourself. It just depends on the different pumps and the different algorithms. And just, again, once you decide which one you're going to use, you would want to make sure you understand how that works. Okay. And again, more data is available to look at for the different pumps and the different, reports that are available for your doctors. This one up here, this is the Tandem. This is a Tandem report. And it shows when they ate, how many carbs they ate, how much insulin was given, and what their blood sugar happened to do afterwards. Okay. And then they have some correction, like an automatic correction, I think is which that one is. I don't have the key right in front of me, so I can't remember what all the icons are unless I have the key in front of me between all the different pumps. But again, this is some of the data. And again, your provider may look at this with you. Or again, if you see us at Blue Circle Health, we can review these reports with you and help you identify different patterns of behavior and how it's working with your blood sugar targets that you have. Okay.
Can I want to admit right here, Sherry, and I'm glad you brought this up too, that I am completely overwhelmed when I try and look at my own insulin pump data and my automated insulin delivery data. And I think it's like I'm too close to the details. I'm not able to step back and look at things objectively. And so I really value um, having a talented clinician, diabetes educator, take a look and help me make some sense out of what I'm seeing in my reports. Because oftentimes it might be just a very minor adjustment in one of my settings or my ratios that can help me smooth out some rough patches. But I just wanted to share that in case anyone is looking at this and kind of freaking out, going, oh my gosh. And I'm not embarrassed to admit I don't ever look at this stuff. I outsource this to the people that help me on my healthcare team.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't expect you to know this or expect you to look at it all the time. That's just too much. That's just too much to do. But then you have people like me that love looking at it and think it's fascinating. And I'm like, okay, well, why did that go up? It may be because of, they didn't pre bolus soon enough, or maybe they didn't eat as many carbs as they said they would, or maybe activity level. So again, this type of stuff, like I get excited over. So I think it's fun to look at and trying to figure out the puzzle. But do I look at my own stuff? No, because it's the same type of thing. It's too close. I'm like, ooh, I need somebody else to look at that for me. But I'll be more than happy to look at anybody else's and help them see different trends and identify things, because sometimes we just need that other set of eyes on the data. But yeah, this one down here, this is an Omnipod report. And then this one up here is a tide pool report. So different ways that reports are provided and data that's looked at and the information that is there. So again, please don't feel overwhelmed seeing this and think you have to know how to do this or how to read it. It really just depends on your education team that you have and what your doctor looks at. And again, if you are able to see us, we will be more than happy to go over this data with you. Okay. All right. So troubleshooting, when you have a pump, sometimes there are problems. Just like any electronic device or mechanical device, they can have issues from time to time. Like I said, I've been pumping for 24 years now, and I've hardly had any pump failures. I may have had some site failures, but actual pump failure where the pump itself has had a mechanical error, I don't think I've had any, really. I don't really remember a time that that's ever happened where the pump itself has gone bad. I have had some site issues. And so it's important to know how to kind of troubleshoot. And you can always call the pump companies 24/7 to talk with them as well. So they all have support that is available 24/7 to answer technical calls. But here's an example of my Omnipod where it leaked. And so you can see this wetness right here, but I didn't smell the insulin because this was underneath the pod. So I didn't realize that this had happened. I just thought my blood sugars were higher for a few days because of, maybe my diet was different or something like that. And so I didn't necessarily think to change because it didn't fail so much that I was really high. It was just slightly higher than what I wanted to. And then it made sense when I took it off and I could see that I was not getting the insulin in like I was expecting to. And you change your sites every 3 days. So so after this, I put a new one on and everything was fine, back to normal. And this down here, this is a site where it's like a bent cannula. And so it can get bent sometimes. And to be honest, I fabricated this one to make you see what it was like because I didn't have any more pictures of any any damaged things because again, it doesn't happen very often. So I took this, I had to change this pod and I bent it after the fact. So this is one that was a normal pod. Everything worked fine. It expired, it ended, and I tried to bend it and get the best picture I possibly could. But the reason why
That makes me laugh, Sherry. It's another thing I think is worth pointing out in here, and if patterns prove true, you'll tell me this is on the next slide. I'm going to talk about this next. But for most insulin delivery systems, now the Omnipod is unique because it's not possible there. But ones that use a tube, there are often several different types of infusion sets that you can pick from or try. So, for example, if you're having trouble with site issues, maybe an irritation or a site is not working well, you can talk to them and try a different style of infusion set. And sometimes that's enough to smooth out any problems that you're having.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's not on my next slide, so I'm glad you brought that up. So that's good. But the reason why that is important to recognize is because there is a risk for DKA when you're on an insulin pump. And you're like, well, yeah, there's always a risk for DKA. We have type 1 diabetes. There's always that risk. But the important thing to remember is that you don't have any like the background insulin. You don't have basal rate. So if your site messes up or your pump fails, there's nothing being given to you. And so you don't have that background coverage for your blood sugars like you would if you were taking an injection, okay, of basal insulin. So it's important to kind of get that site changed out as quickly as you can. You don't want to go for a long period of time without having insulin being delivered. And so that risk for DKA is a little bit higher when you're on a pump again if you have a site failure or a pump failure. And again, they have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week support so they can answer any technical questions. If you do have an issue, they may be able to send you out a new pump right away, or in Omnipod's case, they may be able to send you out a new controller if the controller isn't working correctly. But if you notice high blood sugars and you're not sure, when in doubt, change your site out. That's one of the best things to remember to do, is to make sure that you change that site out. And if you've if you've been high, you've been over 250 for a few hours, that's when you start going back into your, what do I do with high blood sugars? You want to check for ketones. If you have ketones, then you want to maybe take an injection of fast acting insulin with a shot instead of waiting for the pump to start back. That way, you know it's going in, there's no problem. If you start having those symptoms of DKA, the nausea, the vomiting, the shortness of breath, the smelly breath smell, then you would want to be going to the emergency room for that. But when in doubt, change the site out. I'd rather you be safe than not if you have any issues with those things. Okay. All right. So the pros of insulin pumps, they are more accurate, or they're able to deliver a more accurate and precise insulin delivery. And so you're able to get much smaller doses. And people are usually having more time in range, which is that 70 to 180. Again, no more daily injections, and it keeps track of that active insulin. So helping to prevent that stacking from happen. But there's a lot of other pros that aren't on the list, for like you have more flexibility with your eating and your dosing. Like maybe you're at a party and you only brought enough syringes to take one bolus, right? But if you have an insulin pump, you can bolus, and you can bolus again if you're eating more, or oh, now it's time for dessert and you want to have that. So again, it gives you a little bit more flexibility. You're only using one type of insulin. And because you're usually getting smaller doses of insulin, the absorption tends to be better. And you tend to use less insulin when you are on an insulin pump. So those are some of the benefits of having the insulin pumps. Okay. The cons, it's not a cure. It's just a different way to deliver insulin. So many people will think they get this pump and that's all they have to do. They just have to put it on and there's no other interaction. You still have to interact with it. It's just a different way to deliver insulin. The cost can be prohibitive. The pump and the monthly supplies, depending on how your insurance covers it, that can be a challenge for people. You still have to announce to the pump that you are eating. We kind of covered that with that mealtime bolus. Again, the risk for DKA if there's a pump site or a pump failure. You can also have skin irritations as well. They can have some beeps and alarms, and then, having something attached to you at all times or carrying the phone or something to control it if you're using one of the pumps that takes that something that has to control it besides the pump itself. So
Sherry,
those
can I
Yeah.
add another I want to add another con for those who travel frequently. Airport TSA is usually a little bit more interesting. I won't go as far as to say automatically problematic, but and my experience has been that most airport TSA staff are pretty familiar these days with insulin pumps and things like that. But you think about it, if you're just using pens or injections, there's nothing on your body to trigger anything, any on the scanners and things like that. But when you've got a pump attached, sometimes that can result in a bit of a slowdown. So I thought I'd
Yeah, that is a good point. In fact, the last time I flew, you usually walk through and they see it, they have you touch it, and then they test your hands. Well, my hands flared for something. So I'm like, "Oh my gosh, of course I have to get the full on pat down. They have to take all of my carry-on luggage and test it for all this stuff." I'm starting to get panicked. I'm like, "What flared? What did I do to cause this?" They didn't answer me. But yeah, that was kind of embarrassing. That was off not very fun. But yeah, but you can still do all the things that you want to do with an insulin pump. You can live your life to the fullest and be the most amazing person that you already are. It's just that you have something else attached to you. You can still travel. You can still eat the food that you want to eat. You can have sex. You can wear what you want to wear. The pump doesn't mean to stop you. You can go through metal detectors. You can go through the security in the airport, just like Scott was talking about, fly. You can shower with the CGMs on. And the Omnipod, you don't have to take off. The other pumps you may need to detach for a short period of time, and you would detach the tubing from where it's sitting on your skin. The only thing that you need to be more cautious about is if you need an MRI or an X-ray or a CT scan. Those will depend on the different pumps or CGMs. And you would look at their manufacturer guidelines as to what's allowed. The Libre and the Eversense are approved for that, but the Dexcom is not. And then you would just take your pumps off. So we're getting closer to the time. So I want to make sure you guys see all of the different things a little bit closer. Dexcom and Libre are the most popular CGMs that are out there. You've heard me mention Eversense a few times. Eversense is a device that is implanted into your skin, and then you wear the receiver over it, or the transmitter over it, and then you get the information on your device. But this you keep it in for a whole year. So this is a newer one. It will be communicating with a pump that's just coming onto the market yet, but Libre and Dexcom communicate with the Omnipod and the Tandem and the Beta Bionic pump that's out there already. But the Eversense will be communicating with the Twist pump, and then Medtronic has its own CGM that communicates with it. Okay. So here are pictures of the different pumps. So Beta Bionics, that's a new one that's on the market. This one is the one that you only have to announce food. You have to say, I'm having a small, medium, or large meal, and it will do a lot of the calculations and figuring of how much insulin you need based on just putting your body weight in to start with. So that one there's like no real carb counting or entering of carbs like that. The MiniMed 780G, this is the one that has its own sensor. It's supposed to be communicating with the Libre soon. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen. And they also have a new sensor coming out as well that is their own. And they have an infusion site that you can wear for 7 days, where most of the pumps you have to change every 3 days. So that's exciting for them. I clicked on the wrong place. Okay. And then we have the Omnipod 5 and the Omnipod Dash. It holds 200 units. It's tubeless. You wear it on your body and you wear it for 3 days. You have to change it at the 80-hour point. You use it for 3 days, and then it has an 8-hour grace period. You can control it with the controller that comes with it, or you can download the app on your iPhone or your Android phone. You just wanna make sure that the phone is compatible.
Sherry, can you talk a little bit about what you've seen from a clinician standpoint around the reporting options for Omnipod 5 specifically? One of the commenters stated that they were having some trouble with glucose. It never worked right. And I'm not familiar with what all the options are that look like. Well, what can you share? What do you know about
Yeah.
that?
So when you start on Omnipod, you create a Podder Central account, and then you have to create a Gluco account, and you have to link the two. What happens a lot of times is that somebody may have created a Gluco account a long time ago because that's where different finger stick meters would send the data to. And maybe they forgot that they had that because it really, I don't know, people weren't using it or whatever. And so then they try and create a new one, and there's issues with them all linking together. So it can be kind of confusing. If you have a Gluco account and they're not communicating together, we can always call Gluco, and or you can come to me and I can help you figure out why that's happening. But sometimes it's because the Omnipod may never have linked to Gluco. You have two different usernames and passwords for both, and it can be confusing. So yeah, so that is some issues with the reporting system on that one. They are supposed to be coming out with their own reporting system, but I have no idea when that's actually going to happen, but they did announce that that will happen at some point in time.
Great.
So
Thank you.
yeah, no problem. And then we have Tandem. Tandem is a touch screen, and they have this one, the touch screen, you can control everything from the pump itself, but you can also link it to an app where you can control it from that as well. And then we have the Mobi, and you have to use the iPhone to control it. It does not have an Android feature at this point. It holds 200 units, and the bigger one holds 300 units of insulin. And Medtronic holds 300, and Beta Bionics holds about 180 units. And then the Twist is the newest one that's come out on the market. It holds 300 units, and you control it with the iPhone, and you can also control it from your Apple Watch as well. And it has a button on it too where you can like give some insulin if you need to. But this one has just literally come out. It may not be available quite yet in your location, but this is one that is using the Tide Pool algorithm. And the Tide Pool algorithm ties in nicely to this next statement where there are DIY algorithms that are on the market. And it's called looping is usually a term that you might see for that. But basically what you're doing is you're hacking into an Omnipod dash pod or an old Medtronic pump, and it's communicating with the algorithm through your phone. And it's a system that is not FDA approved, but more and more people are using them. So we can talk about that more in depth if you have that question. But those are the pumps that are on the market now. And I'm sorry, we don't have very much time to go over them more, but if you have questions, we can, of course, make an appointment. I'll be more than happy to see you if you're in one of our states that we can see you from.
Of course, if you're interested or want more details, we're happy to do a deeper dive or a part two or kind of whatever you would like us to do. We're happy to put that together. Yeah, that was fantastic, Sherry. Thank you so much. And again, we really appreciate all of you attending and sharing your time with us today. I know it was a lot of information.
Yeah.
But don't worry, I'll send the recording out via email. And Sherry, thank you again for taking us through all that information. It can feel overwhelming, but you made it all very easy to understand. So thank you very much for that. Um, Stay tuned for future events like this on Monday, August 4th. Rita is hosting another cooking class, and this time it's all about delicious salads and summer greens. And then we've got the English and Spanish group sessions coming up. The English sessions happen next Thursday and Friday, so keep an eye out for those details. And then Carrie is coming back on August 12th for a mid-year check-in on realistic goal setting. So I'm excited about that one. And then please check out our website events page for more information, and you can register right there as well. That's at bluecirclehealth.org/events. And finally, please do share your feedback. So depending on how you joined, you may see a survey once you close out of here, or I'll also include a link in the follow-up email. We'd love to know if this was helpful and what other topics you'd like us to cover. With that, Sherry, I'm going to move into the very brief Blue Circle Health explainer. So for anyone here today who may not be familiar with Blue Circle Health, I'll share a quick 5-minute overview and then stick around to answer any questions. Sherry will let you drop off. So
Okay.
again, thank you very much. This was very helpful. And then for those of you who are already familiar with us, you can also drop off anytime you like. So Sherry, again, thank you for your expertise. All right. Blue Circle Health offers free add-on clinical care, education, and support for people with type 1 diabetes. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization funded by the Helmsley Charitable Trust that works alongside diabetes care teams to support people with type 1 diabetes and extend the care that they already receive. Our mission is to learn the best ways to care for people living with type 1, to apply those learnings to care for as many people as possible, and then also share our learnings to improve type 1 diabetes care everywhere. So, what exactly does that mean? We offer a free, flexible program to extend care between visits. Our program is up to 6 months long. It's done entirely virtually over Zoom, text, and phone. It offers as much or as little support as requested. So that means you can take advantage of every service we offer or just pick the ones that you need. And I'll go more into that in just a second. You stay connected to your medical homes, and we send regular updates to them throughout your progress in the program. And our services are free, regardless of insurance and immigration status. Re-enrollment is possible 1 year from your original enrollment date. So we know that, we offer a short-term program, but we know that there's nothing short-term yet about type 1 diabetes. So just know that it's not a one and done thing forever. Now, the graphic on the right side shows the available services, and I'll describe them in more detail, going counterclockwise and starting with clinical care. So clinical care is exactly what it sounds like. It's visits with one of our endocrinologists or advanced nurse practitioners. We also offer insurance navigation. So that is consultation with insurance specialists who can help you understand and maximize any insurance coverage you may have and help you find insurance coverage if needed. They can also help with prior authorizations. Diabetes supportive counseling offers help with the emotional burden of type 1 diabetes. Next is case management. So our case managers can help if you're struggling with food, housing, or employment insecurities. Peer support and community. So in addition to monthly group sessions, you'll have a dedicated T1D support guide to work with who will help you navigate all of the other services and just be there for you if you need someone to talk to. And then as well as ongoing community events just like this and connections to other great type 1 diabetes community organizations. Then, of course, we have education and nutrition. So that's visits with registered dietitians and certified diabetes care and education specialists like Sherry, who you saw today. Then there are 2 additional programs available within the Blue Circle Health program. The first is Prescription Assistance Program. And this is for qualified applicants who need help paying for supplies and medications. The qualification for that is an income level at or below 300% of the federal poverty level. And then the next is an Intro to CGM, which provides 3 months of free education and access to CGM for those who have not had reliable access to one before. And when it comes to eligibility, the requirements are as follows. So, diagnosis of type 1 diabetes. And note here, this is not just for newly diagnosed. We're here for you anywhere along your T1D journey. And yes, this does also include things like LADA. We're only serving adults, so you have to be over the age of 18, English and or Spanish speaking. You have to have an ability to connect and participate in virtual care. So that means access to a smartphone or a computer for Zoom video calls. You must have a primary care physician or endocrinologist, or be willing to be connected to one. No current pregnancy. And then you must reside in one of the states that we're available in. As of today, that is Alabama, Delaware, Florida, Iowa, Louisiana, Maine, Mississippi, Missouri, New Hampshire, Ohio, or Vermont. And the list of states is growing. So check our website and follow us on social media for the latest, especially if you're watching this recording after the fact. And we've got several more states that we're working on opening up in the coming months. So we're trying to expand as quickly as we can. The vision is to be available for every person with type 1 diabetes in the United States, no matter what states they're in. So again, here's a list of those states. We're really grateful to have helped over 750 people with type 1 diabetes since January of 2024. And again, the list of states is growing quickly. So if you're in a state where we're not available today, please just stay tuned. Continue coming to these community events, tune into our social media, and just know that we're working on it. We want to get to you as quickly as we can. I'm going to play a very short video from a few of the people who have gone through the program. It's only about 90 seconds long. And while that's playing, go ahead and share any questions you might have in the chat. I'm happy to stick around and answer them.
I was looking up and my blood sugars at 400, 600 every day. That to me, waking up dizzy, tired was normal. My day consisted of working with my carbs all day long. I didn't have a life. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I knew nothing about pump.
And even with the knowledge I have as a nurse, I still didn't have the knowledge to control my diabetes.
I didn't have the right tools or the right education. Even though I've been diabetic my whole life,
It just became so common to me to keep getting sick all the time, all the time. And the ambulance people already knew me. I knew the crew that was gonna pick me up. It's scary.
and then the circle show up.
The confidence I have today. I feel like a new person. I feel happier. I feel safer. I'm just glad I grasped the control in time.
My journey with you guys has been amazing. I feel like I have my life back. I don't know where I would be right now. Well, I am so very lucky, but I'm so grateful for your program. It's amazing. Absolutely.
When you change somebody's life in the way they have changed mine, and after a lot I've been through with diabetes, it's priceless.
All right. Thanks for watching that. Please visit our website to learn more and sign up if you'd like. And just a couple of questions that have come in. Virginia is on the list of states that we're working on. We're targeting, it looks like, first part of next year, but it's tricky. And the reason I say it's tricky is for every state that we operate in, we have to license and get all of our clinicians licensed to operate and provide care in those states. And sometimes those licensing requirements don't cooperate with the plans that we have. But yes, it is on the list. It is one that we're working on. Kentucky was another question that came in, and we're working on that one as well. But just know that we actually have a team of people inside Blue Circle Health who their job is to work on these licensures for our clinicians. And the vision is to be available in all 50 states. Yeah, great questions. And with that, I really appreciate all of your time and attention. Fun to see everyone here. And please take a look at our website for upcoming events, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.